to today's show, and it is we start off with the functions of LDL and HDL cholesterol. Start off with LDL functions. You want me to start off?
Yes.
All right. So LDL, as we have said earlier, represents low density lipoproteins. It's a mouthful, but thank God for abbreviations. You just have to remember LDL. And that's all you got to remember. And the good thing is that's how most people call it. So forget about that long name, lipoproteins. All right. And for the functions of LDL, that comes to mind. LDL is very important, though everybody knows it's the bad cholesterol, right? But the importance of LDL derives from the fact that it is the transport machine of cholesterol from the liver to our cells. As we said earlier on in our preview of last show, cholesterol is important. We need cholesterol to make hormones. We need cholesterol to make cell membranes. We need cholesterol to make brain. We need cholesterol in mostly a lot of the chemical signaling in our bodies. So cholesterol has to be moved to the places where the cell needs them, whether it's forming new cells or making a new thing like a hormone or a chemical. And the machine that transports cholesterol is what we call the LDL, the low density lipoproteins. And the reason is that we're being a little bit more detailed here, so just pay close attention. The reason is that cholesterol, as Gifty said, is a fat or a waxy substance which cannot mix with blood, cannot just travel from the liver or wherever it is taken up from to the cells on its own. It needs to be bundled up in a way that can easily flow or be transported in the blood to where it is needed in the cells. And so low density lipoproteins, which is a kind of protein, is the one that basically covers up the cholesterol, repackages it into a form that the blood doesn't see as fat. It's basically mixed with the protein or covered by the protein, and then it is transported to where it is needed. That is why its name, that cholesterol's name, is what? Low density lipoproteins. But the main function of low density lipoprotein or LDL is it is to transport cholesterol from where it is made to where it is needed in the cells. If you want to add anything, or unless you want to go to HDL.
Yes. So with the LDL, it becomes an issue when we have it in excess.
My goodness.
Yeah.
My goodness. My goodness.
So that's where we get worried that if your low density lipoprotein, which is the LDL, is too high, because like our doctor is saying, right? When it's being carried from where it's made to the cells, it passes through the blood. It's not able to stay in the blood. It should be incorporated with the protein, right? So if you have excess, whilst it's moving through the arteries, the excess are left in the arteries. That's when it become a problem. That's when it start being built up in the cells, and that can lead to stroke and heart attack. So we need LDL for our brains to function, for our hormone synthesis, and for our cells to function very well. But excess of it becomes a problem.
Excess. My
Excess.
goodness. Excess. They have an adage that too much of everything is bad, right?
Yes.
Too much of everything is bad. So though we are always enemies of LDL, most people are at least. I think I'm not. I'm just 50-50. I'm in the middle. I'm not too much of an enemy, and I'm not too much of a fan of LDL because it's doing its job. If we eat, why are you laughing?
50-50.
I'm 50-50. I'm in the middle. But a lot of people they hear LDL and they are running for the bush because LDL is dangerous. Yeah, only when it is too much,
Yes.
like Gifty is saying. So yes, if it's in its normal level, it is doing its job, carries everything to the cells through the blood. But like Gifty is saying, if it is in excess, then it's going to leave deposit on your artery walls, and then something you don't want to begin to happen. which we'll go into later on in subsequent shows, if not today. All right, so with that on the way, can you talk about the other one, which is
The
the
H
HDL?
HDL. So the HDL is that what the good cholesterol. I think last week we mentioned the H will give you a clue that you need high of it in your system for it to be very useful. The way that it works, its function is that it serves as a scavenger, meaning that it takes the excess
Cholesterol.
cholesterol in the blood back to the liver so that it's being destroyed in the liver. So if you have more of the LDL in your system, when the LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, is taking the cholesterol to the cells where it's needed and it has excess, the HDL come back and clean it up, pick everything up and send it back to the liver. So I think that the differentiation here is that the LDL is produced in the liver and is sent to the cells, right? But the HDL pick the excess and take it back to the liver for it to be destroyed.
My goodness, my goodness, my goodness. That is a wise maker. So intricately, when David said that I am fearfully and wonderfully made, everything has its own function, and that is what God has placed in us. So LDL will bring it in when you need it, and then HDL is like, oh, excess, let's move that out and destroy it because too much will cause heart attacks. Too much will cause stroke after some point. And so that is the balance there. So HDL, like she said, is needed because most of us eat and produce a lot of LDL and becomes in excess. So we need the HDL to clean up, as
Clean it up.
she said. That is a beautiful balance. If you can make that balance happen, then your doctor is going to be happy because you are going to be healthy. Your stroke risk is going to be less, and your heart disease risk is going to be less because your LDL is doing its function all right, and your HDL is doing its function. So the broomer, the cleaner is there, and the person who litters the place is also there. My goodness. everybody everybody's got their own job and everybody is doing their job right. All right, so with that being said, what is the next one that we're going to talk about? So we're going to talk about the numbers, and I'm pretty sure most of you have been looking out at your lab work. Your doctor may have told you you have high this, high HDL, high LDL, high triglycerides, and all those. So we are going to talk about that one and see where those actually mean, what they mean. So let's see what they mean actually. So it is, let's see if I can bring this. All right. So now we are going to talk about the numbers. Now, the caveat we want to say here is that these are typical numbers, but they do not represent everybody's numbers or ranges. In other words, hospitals or institutions may have different normal levels than what we are seeing, but however different they may be, they will stay close to it. So if we say desirable or normal or high or whatever the number is, in your hospital or in your institution or your doctor's office, they may quote a number similar, not exact. So like if you say 200, they may say 210, they may say 190. So just keep that in mind because these are no absolute numbers. These are numbers that we believe are representative of most of the institutions out there from the American Heart Association for the most part. All right. So with that out of the way, what is total cholesterol? I think we did talk about total cholesterol last week. Okay, so
Just a bit, yeah.
yeah, just a bit. So maybe we should do a refresher on that so that it will make more sense, right? So total cholesterol is the total sum of all your cholesterols. The sum of all your cholesterols. In
So the LDL, the HDL, your triglycerides, and we have some few other ones that is in there, but most of the time we don't pay attention to it because the numbers are so low that it becomes very insignificant. So we are going to dwell more on the high ones, the one that we really need to know.
which are the
right?
HDL, the LDL,
LDL and the
and
triglycerides.
the total cholesterol itself too. So when we say total cholesterol, it means that the sum of all the
Sure.
cholesterols that can be measured. So keep that in mind. Now, it is important to note that to quote or to basically predict your heart disease or your stroke risk, your doctors may look at this number and then the LDL itself and the HDL itself. But you understand as you move forward. So just stick to the stream, don't leave, watch it to the end, and it will make more sense as you move forward. All right. So desirable level of your total cholesterol is that it should be less than 200 milligrams per deciliter or 200 milligrams per DL. In other places where they use the international units, it would be the 5.1 millimeters millimoles
Millimoles per
per
liter.
liter. So keep that in mind. I'm not going to be mentioning all the millimoles per liter. I'm just going to go strictly by the US standard here, which is just the big numbers. And if you are not watching from the US, your number is the smaller one. So it's basically the same thing coded in different measuring units. All right, so the desirable level for your total cholesterol is less than 200. Simple as that. Less than 200 or less than 5.18, basically. And then if you're borderline high, then it's going to be over 200 to 239. So if you went for a lab and the doctor told you your total cholesterol number, it's going to be around these ones we have. If you see that less than 200 or less than 5 or more than 200. And the borderline high is if it is between 200 and 239. And then high is when it is 240 or more. 240 or more, then your total cholesterol is very high.
So, like sometimes your doctors are a little particular about the borderline. So it means that you are not there yet. You are at the point that you are going to get to the maybe the risky part. So they tell you are a borderline risk. So you have to pay attention to your diet and your exercise and all the things that go into getting your cholesterol right. So if they tell you a borderline, you are not there yet. You still have chance to go back to the desirable level instead of falling over to the high levels.
All right, all right. So borderline is still manageable. In fact, even higher line is still, if you're even in a high, we don't want you to give up. Basically, just make sure that you follow and continue to watch because we're going to show you how to get these numbers down in subsequent shows, naturally, not with medications. All right, and the next one is the LDL cholesterol. And if you want to read that.
Yeah, so the LDL, which is bad cholesterol, the normal range is less than 100 milligram per deciliter, right? So any number below 100, you are in the normal range. And it becomes abnormal range when it's higher than 100, but it's still within under 129. So between 100 and 129 is you are in the abnormal range, right? And I think it continue by saying that if it's less than 130 and your risk is moderate, then it's okay for your numbers to be less than 130. So here, I think the most important point we want you to take from here is everybody's number may be different based on their risk level. And I think we will go over the risk factors, right? So some people are considered moderate risk, meaning that they may not be diabetic, they may not have high blood cholesterol, high blood pressure, and they may be in optimal weight range, so that their risk is called moderate. So if you are in that category, then the doctor may say that even if you're up to 130, if it's less than 130, it's okay, right? But people in the higher risk level, people that are diabetic, people that are smokers, people that are obese, meaning that they have risk factors. In that case, then the doctor may try and get your level less than 100. And the very high risk people are people that already have heart diseases. They are diabetic, they are obese, they have heart issue, they have murmurs, arrhythmia, a lot of heart diseases going on. Then the doctor may try and bring it down below 70. So depending on where you are in your health, your numbers may be okay to be there. And depending on where you are in your health, the doctors may try to bring down the level of the LDL, because that's the bad cholesterol. That if it's too much, like we mentioned, it's likely that it's going to cause a lot of problem. It's going to lead you to heart attack and stroke easily because of your condition.
All right, all right. So that is, I think she couldn't explain it any better than that. That is it. Your risk will depend on your goal, I should say, the goal set by your doctor or your practitioner. It could be an APR and whoever is taking care of you. Your goal will be set based on your risk. Now, since we mentioned that, let's throw in the heart disease risk factors right now so that we'll get it out of the way. So we know that if you're a smoker, you are at a higher risk for cardiovascular events or heart or stroke attacks if you smoke. It's not me, it's scientific, it's proven. Also, if you are obese or you are overweight, I mean, overweight is getting there, but obese is even the serious one. If your weight is beyond what it's normal, to the point where you have gone over being overweight, now you are obese, you also have a higher risk for heart disease and stroke. And I said smoking, right? And if you also have some comorbid conditions or some diseases, in particular, if you are diabetic, your chance of also getting certain diseases like heart issues and stroke issues are also increased. So you are at a high risk. And there could be more.
Blood pressure.
Your blood pressure. If you have high blood pressure, you have also an increased risk of heart disease and stroke. So if you have any one of these or multiples of these, and also if you have had a heart event or you have had stroke before, maybe not a full-blown stroke, but maybe a TIA, what we call transient ischemic attack, then you are also considered high risk for a stroke or heart attack. So any one of these disease conditions can make your doctor say that, hey, your LDL must come down to less than 70, while somebody is okay to live at less than 130. So it's not that your doctor is picking on you. They're not picking on you, my goodness. Yeah. It's not that your doctor is picking on you. It's not that they want you to stop eating all the good stuff because they don't like you. No, it is because of your risk, your comorbid conditions, and your risk of, having issues if you don't take serious attention to your cholesterol, especially your LDL cholesterol. That is why your goal may be different. So goals are usually set per your risk, and then also sometimes even per your age. Sometimes, but family history
Family
will also
history.
play a role. If you're in a family where younger people have died out of a heart attack or stroke, your doctor may be more stringent. They may tell you that, hey, your goal is going to be less than 70. Your goal is going to be less than this, all because of the family history, because they know that genetically you are predisposed to having certain diseases. And so they will treat it that way. And so that is why the numbers may be different for different risk groups. So with that out of the way, unless you want to add any.
Yeah, sometimes too, some people don't really know much about their family history, but they know that people from that family die very early. You know, maybe sometimes there is no diagnosis for them to know. What Now that we have a lot of information out there, you can just ask questions and see what was the cause of the death. Maybe we have maybe a family that by the age of 50, they get heart attack. For all that you know,
Stroke.
yeah, or stroke, yeah. And we said that the cholesterol sometimes is produced in the liver. It's even produced in the liver, right? So it's produced in the liver. So maybe genetically, you tend to produce more cholesterol. So if you're producing more of the cholesterol, it's nothing of your doing. It's just your genetic makeup. So it's something that you have to pay attention. You can let the doctors know so that they'll be more aggressive when they are trying to bring down the LDL, which is the bad cholesterol that can lead to stroke and heart attacks.
My goodness, my goodness, my goodness, my goodness. That is good. That is good. And I want to throw in this. We were talking last when we were talking about habits. When some people from some places, they always blame demons and spirits because for their family, and we even have songs in those cultures where say that as for us in this family, everybody dies at 40, everybody dies at 50. It is not spiritual. It is genetic makeup. Something may be going on. So, like she said, that's a very important point. If you know that in your family, don't blame witches and wizards, please.
Sometimes they cause that too, right?
Oh, come on, man. They don't do anything. Well, I mean, they may be there, but for the most, even if they do that, they do it through high cholesterol. Right? Yeah. So the young folks that are getting stroke in your family and getting, the people dropping dead, and like, that's why our family is so hard. Everybody, if you try to be rich, if you try to do this, oh, they will kill you. Nobody's killing you. It's the cholesterol. Somebody has to investigate something that is wrong genetically and make sure that you don't fall victim to that. Staying away from people because people died young in your family does not protect you. What protects you is to find out what was killing them and then see if you can protect yourself. And cholesterol, as we said last time, is a silent killer. Gifty elaborated a lot. Make sure you watch the previous video after this one. She said a lot. I remember very well. It silently builds up slowly, in your arteries. And before you know, it is too late. And so younger people, especially because of our diet disease, are passing away, and people are just saying
Gone
that
too
gone too soon. We
soon.
make flyers, and it's like, oh, this family, oh, poor wife, oh, poor, yeah. If we don't check up and watch our diet and do all the good stuff to know our numbers, basically anything can happen to you. So please watch those things and don't blame people and families for attacking any young people. So with that out of the way, I think we spent a lot of time on the LDLs. Let's see. The next one that we want to talk about is the good stuff. My goodness, a good guy was hiding in plain sight. The HDL cholesterol. Too much about the bad news. The good news is that HDL cholesterol is the good cholesterol, as we have said over and over. The normal range for that is women should be 50 milligrams per dl or higher, or 1.29 millimoles per liter or higher. And then for men, it should be 40 or 1.04 or higher. So these numbers are very small. LDL, we code them up in the hundreds and above, but this is kind of like in the tens, right? So it doesn't mean that it can easily be gotten, but a little thing you do can make these numbers change, basically, is where I'm trying to get at. So if you're a woman with moderate risk or maybe no risk, you are expected to have 50 or more for good cardiovascular health, for good health for your heart and against stroke. And then if you are a man, you're also expected to have 40 or more. You want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so it becomes abnormal for women if your numbers are less than
Unless
50, and it becomes abnormal for men if your number is less than 40.
40.
So we have to know our numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's what you just said. So now with that out of the way, I'll have Gifty talk about the triglycerides a little bit, and then we will move on.
Yeah, so for the triglycerides, normal range, it should be less than 150, abnormal 150 to 199. That's the borderline. And I think I elaborated on the borderline. You are not there yet. You are right at the border. Then it becomes too high if it's more than 200 or higher.
All right. And again, high triglycerides can be a risk factor for heart diseases and stroke. So not just the LDL, But if your triglycerides are high, you are at a risk or higher or increased risk for heart disease and stroke. So, young people who are watching, this is where we have to watch out. And I think that was it. But we have a thing here to also say that these values are general guidelines and can vary based on your individual health. I think we've already made that point clear. And also based on your health institution, your doctors may follow different numbers. Whatever it is, just make sure that what goal they set for you are the ones you are following. We are just giving general terms, and the numbers may be different for some people. And then what was that? So total cholesterol levels also provide an overview, as we said, of your cholesterol status. But the breakdown of the LDL, the HDL, and the triglycerides give a better informed understanding of your heart disease and stroke risk. So let's keep that in mind. So you can go ahead.
In other words, you cannot just look at your total cholesterol and be okay with it. So maybe if the total cholesterol is less than 200 and you don't know the breakdown, it's good, but it's not good enough. You have to go into details. What's the level of the LDL? What's the level of the HDL? What's the level of the triglycerides? So that you have a better view, understanding of where you stand when it comes to cholesterol.
And also when it comes to your heart health, right? All right. Okay. So with that out of the way, we finish the numbers. Let's see if we can understand it a little more. There is something called the ratio. So the LDL and HDL ratio. We're just going to talk about that, and that will give us an understanding a little more about your risk and see if you can do something about your risk. So the ratio of LDL to HDL is a predictor of your cardiovascular risk or your heart disease or stroke risk. So basically, what that means is that if you take the number of your LDL measurement and we divide it by the HDL measurement, when that number is given, the ratio, if that answer, if you divide your LDL by the HDL amount, if that answer is low, then you have good cardiovascular health, right?
Yep.
So,
And if it's too high, then you know for sure that you have to do something with the numbers. So we see that the HDL is a denominator, right? It's the bottom one, and the LDL is the numerator, the top one. So in order to bring the number down, if we increase the HDL, because it's a denominator, because it's the one that is dividing the number on top, if it's high, then it means that the final answer is going to be low, right? And if it's low, then it means that your heart health is on point. So, in order to tweak the numbers, you can work on increasing your HDL. By increasing your HDL, you are bringing down the number. And by decreasing the LDL, which is the numerator, you are bringing down the number. So as we continue with the presentation, we will try and bring out what you can do to bring down the LDL and what are the things that you should do to bring up the HDL so that overall you have a healthy heart function, and that will prevent you from getting stroke and heart attack.
all right, all right. Now, if you have any questions, you can put it on this comment section, and we will see and read them on the live, if not after the show. All right, so we are using as an example, as Gifty explained. Again, the ratio, the less number you get from the ratio, the better for you. That's the take home that she said. So let's take somebody whose first name begins with A. For A, their LDL cholesterol is 150, and then their HDL cholesterol is 50. If you divide the 150 by 50, you get an answer of 3. So that's the ratio. Now let's see for another person called B. So for Mr. B, same amount of LDL, which is also 150, but their HDL cholesterol is less. They have abnormal HDL because it is less. and it's 30. So if you divide the 150 by the 30, you get 5. So the ratio has increased. And so if you are asked right off the bat, which one of these people, Mr. A or Mr. B, is most likely going to get a heart attack or a stroke, it is Mr. B. Come on, man. I hope you get the point. So that is how we want to make it as simple for you. So your LDL can stay the same, but if you can increase your HDL, then the answer for your ratio will be less. And if the ratio is less, then your heart disease or your stroke disease risk goes down. I hope that point is clear. Now let's do another one. That way it will even make more sense. So for these two people, they had the same LDL but different HDL. And as we go forward in the season, we are going to talk about how to get both of these numbers down. And of course, you already know how to get them high, especially the LDL, because we know all the all the junk food we eat, right? Yeah, but we're going to show you how to get these numbers down.
Which numbers?
The LDL
The
number
LDL
down. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for that. That is a good correction, man. Because we want to get the HDL up.
Yes.
We want to get the HDL up. So with these two people, same LDL, but the factor that made the difference is the HDL. HDL is smaller in Mr. B, so Mr. B is more likely to get a heart attack, a heart disease, or a stroke. Okay, so let's see another example. So in the same similar example, again, we want low ratio for good cardio health. All right. So what about Mr. A? Or let's use Mrs. for this time. Mrs. A. Mrs. A has LDL of 120, and then the HDL is 40. So their ratio is number 3. If you divide 120 by 40, you get 3. All right. And then, no, since it's a Mrs., I'll give to talk about it.
And
Finish the
B
direction.
has the LDL to be 200
Wow.
and the HDL to be 40. HDL for both of them is the same, 40/40. But the difference here is the LDL. And because Mrs. B has high LDL, the answer is what, 5. That makes her higher risk of getting stroke and heart attack as compared to Miss
Oh, my
A.
goodness, my goodness, my goodness. My goodness. It is as clear as possible. I know it may not make that much sense, but these are the hard book work in these things. But just take it from us that you want your HDL to be high, your LDL to be low. The ratio will put itself up for you. You don't need to calculate anything. We just want to be complete, so we have to do the numbers. But yes, the key is that with the LDL being higher, this woman's heart disease or stroke risk has increased because the ratio is 5 instead of 3. All right, so that is very good right there. Now, I think that will be a good place to close on today's show. But we want to also talk a little bit about those numbers that numbers by themselves are not the be all and all. It is good to know the numbers. For me, that's the beginning. But what you do with the numbers is what is important. Some people already know that they have high cholesterol, but they are not doing anything about it. My goodness. They don't care, And that's again, they say that, oh, I forgot. Oh, those two things that the doctor is saying, I can't. This is the food that I like the most. I don't think I can change that. That's me. If I die, I die. Some people are like that. Some people have the numbers. So the numbers by themselves don't really make much sense. What makes much sense is to follow through and know what they mean for you. And so if you understand these things we have shown you, that is good. That's a good way to move from here. If you don't, watch the video over and over. And again, don't be caught in seeing how low your number become or how high it is. Just know if it is high, the things you have to do. And then watch and follow the dietary recommendations that we are going to show you, the exercise recommendations that we're going to show you in future videos, and then see them go down to be the right numbers. And then after that, you can say that you actually did something for yourself. You have anything to?
Yeah, so I think one thing that I've realized here is that when you go to the hospital and they do the blood work, maybe the doctor will order blood work for you, right? You go and you get your blood work done. Sometimes they don't really go over the numbers with you. It just stay on your in your chat and it stays there. But the good news is like nowadays most of the hospital will give you a code that you can access your information. So, like, we are encouraging people to do their annuals, take care of yourself, know your numbers, and all that. When you go and the doctor order lab work for you, it's your duty to follow up with the numbers. If nobody called you, maybe they are too busy, or maybe you are at the borderline, or maybe you are not there yet. So they don't feel like it's an emergency and they don't follow up and they don't follow through. So if you want to know your numbers, you are paying for the cost. You go to the hospital, they bill your insurance, you do the copay. So you have rights to your information. You have to know your numbers. So when we were talking about this, I remember that I have to check my numbers. And I went to the website of the hospital that I normally go and visit. And I went through my numbers and I realized that one of my cholesterol is high. I remember the doctor saying that I'm at the borderline, you know, but because they did, maybe I can put it this way, they did not scare you enough, or maybe you don't really understand the implication of having high cholesterol. You don't do anything about it. So we are here to help and to share the information, but it is your duty to follow up, follow through with the information that you obtain and do something, like we are saying, do something about it. Because if you know the dangers of having LDL, high LDL, you know, that we are talking about now narrowing the arteries and blocking and forming plaques, and that can cause clots to form and cause you to have stroke and heart attack. You have that information, so it will be your desire to do something about it. So it's good to know, but you have to put an action to it so that it becomes useful to you.
My goodness,
Yeah.
my goodness, my goodness. All right. That is well said. That is well said. So follow through and know your numbers. And if you want to access questions, you can ask again. We are just giving you the guidelines. Your doctors or your APRNs or your pharmacists, whoever takes care of you, can answer more of your questions. But you can throw to us any questions that you may have in the comment section, and we'll be careful to answer them if we can. If we cannot, we'll just tell you, hey, ask this one to your doc. And we make sure that we enjoy good heart health and good brain health together. So that is it for today's show. We just want to encourage you that if you are also already, we're talking about this in general terms, right? And some people watching already know that they have high cholesterol, high total cholesterol, or high LDL. They already know. If you already know this, don't be scared. We are not here to scare you. We are going to teach you how to bring those numbers down naturally, but not skipping your medications, because we also know that medications do work. Unlike some people, we believe that medications do work. And so we're going to talk in subsequent shows about how to use natural means as well as medications to control your high HDL. And that makes,
To control
I'm
your
sorry, to control your high LDL.
LDL.
You want high HDL. So let's keep that in mind. So next week, we're going to talk about the role of LDL in atherosclerosis, which Gifty just summed up so quickly. I don't even know if we should have a show about it. How these LDLs are involved in plaquing or blocking your arteries such that you get a heart attack or a stroke. We're going to see how that happens. And after that, that's when we will start talking about the foods and exercises that you got to do. We want you to have a complete picture of the whole thing. So make time with us, same time next week, 6 p.m. Sunday evening Eastern time and 10 p.m. GMT. And until we see you again, we say, Beloved,
Beloved,
we
we
wish
wish
above
above all
all things
things that
that you
you
prosper
prosper and
and
be
be in
in
health,
health,
even
even
as your
as your
soul
soul
prospers.
prospers.
Thanks for watching. Stay
Thank you.
blessed.